Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's online asset colloquium. And it has been a while that we didn't have an online one, but the various logistics of the speaker was such that we somehow managed to have this slot just precisely convenient for him. And equally interesting is today's colloquium topic. The audience of this colloquium and other colloquium at TF are very used to hearing astronomy. In that sense, computational astronomy could have been a topic, but today you had to, you would listen something about computational gastronomy. Yes, you heard right. That is computational gastronomy and making food computable. Our very special speaker today is Professor Ganesh Bagler. Is from Infosys Center for Artificial Intelligence, IIIT-Delhi. A few words about today's speaker. Ganesh Bagler, even as a teenager, aspired to be, yes, you guessed it right, to be an astronomer, okay? And trained in physics, computer science, and computational biology, he has had an adventurous journey from astronomy to today's gastronomy. Ganesh is known for pioneering research in computational gastronomy by building keystone data repositories, algorithms, and applications. He has established the foundations of this obviously emerging data science that blends food with AI. Trailblazing research from his lab has significantly contributed to this niche area that deals with food, flavors, nutrition, health, and sustainability. Professor Bagler has an audacious dream of transforming the global food landscape by making food computable. So I think you can definitely look forward to very tasty asset colloquium. And with that, over to today's speaker, Professor Ganesh Bagler.
Thank you, Professor Satyanarayana. And it's my pleasure to be talking to this audience via the TIFR's Asset Colloquium. It's an honor to be here and presenting the work which I have been conducting for the last 8 years, having started serendipitously. The tasty part, I wish I could come down in person and deliver it in person as well. But other than that, definitely I hope to make this a food for thought for all of you. I'll just switch off the video to avoid any, and I will again turn it on towards the end. I am Ganesh Bagler from IIIT-Delhi, associated with the Infosys Center for Artificial Intelligence, and have been working on topics which relate to food, flavors, nutrition, health, etc. And way back in 2017 or so, I realized that the work that I have been doing and the thought processes that have been keeping me busy need to be named, and that is where the term computational gastronomy was coined, and we ended up talking about the work under this umbrella term. And for the last few years, having realized the importance of the work that we have been conducting in my lab, I have taken up this mission of making food computable, which sounds a little counterintuitive, given the fact that when we look at food, we see it as pleasure, emotion, something which is very subjective, far away from anything that science could contemplate looking at it from a data science point of view. But that is exactly what I have been up to in my lab, along with my students who have contributed immensely to this work. So let me begin. And before you may have any thoughts about, in fact, the secret has been already spelled out that yes, as a teenager, I wanted to be an astronomer. And in fact, did my thesis, master's thesis, while I was doing my master's in physics from Pune University Physics Department at IUCAA. Things turned out in a manner that I never ended up working in astronomy after my master's work. However, I have reached to a place through a long journey from astronomy to all the way up to gastronomy through the channel of computer science, computational biology, where I did my PhD from CCMB, Hyderabad, and a short postdoctoral stint at NCBS, etc., to the place where I am today. So I will tell you about my journey, as well as what we have been able to do in this interesting niche, which tries to look at food through the lens of data science. But coming to food first and our abilities of cooking as Homo sapiens. It has been argued that our disproportionately large brain sizes have been primarily contributed by the fact that Homo sapiens at a certain point of time have learned how to cook and literally digest food outside the stomach, which means that processing the food in a manner that it is easier for us to digest when it is consumed, and thereby giving us access to calories which are required for survival, reproduction, which are evolutionary traits extremely essential. Other than the fact that, yes, these disproportionately large brain sizes have conferred us with abstract thinking and creative abilities, which all of us, we are proud of and we are known for, turns out that our being human itself can be condensed into a few critical features, which includes maybe languages, and other than that, cooking. So look, this is the argument which has been made in this book, Catching Fire, How Cooking Made Us Human, by Richard Wrangham, where he has elaborately put the argument together about how our ability of cooking, processing food is very, very essential to our identity. And in a big way, we do identify ourselves with the way we cook, the kind of dishes that we relish. And that is a cultural connection that we tend to have, to an extent that it can be appropriated, such as the chicken butter, the Indian, which is considered to be the British dish, but coming from India. And we keep on debating about Rasgulla. Where does it belong to? Does it belong to Orissa or West Bengal? So that's a kind of an identity that we lay down on our ability, our cooking and culinary legacies. At the same time, ironically, the diet seems to be at the center today when it comes to health and lifestyle disorders that we are plagued with, whether it is obesity, type 2 diabetes, or cardiovascular disorder, seem to be partially coming out of our dietary habits and sedentary lifestyles. And more importantly, I believe one more thing that makes me think about food in a far more serious fashion probably is about our existence on the earth itself. I do not know why Elon Musk is trying to move to Mars, but if we do not find sustainable ways of feeding ourselves as a civilization, then 30 years down the line, when we anticipate to have a population of 10 billion, we shall definitely be facing that urgent need of finding ways of moving out of the earth. Whether or not we go to Mars or any other place, but definitely looks like we need to figure out ways of producing food sustainably, consuming it in a far more meaningful fashion. And that would mean that we need to look at food from a completely different lens, completely different angle than what we have been doing so far. While classical food science and technology has been looking at very, very different interesting angles, including that of creating new products as well as preservation, I personally believe that today, with the kind of data science progress that we have made in different domains, we can look at food from the lens of data, from the lens of computing. And that's what that's a mantra, that is a message that I have been propagating for a while, that of making food computable. And I'm sure you would be wondering, what is it that I really mean when I say that we should be making food computable? I shall be giving examples from the research that has been done in my lab, and many other academic as well as commercial entities across the globe have identified the potential of this area and have been working on it with increasing pace for the last few years. So let me present you about what I mean by making food computable. Computational gastronomy, I have defined it tentatively as a data science which blends food with the computing power and algorithms, etc., where we can use what is already available in the area of computer science for coming up with ways by which we can understand our food and culinary habits better, as well as possibly come up with innovations in food. And while doing so, we have looked at various domains within food and related topics. Agriculture, we have not seen it so much, but that is something that we would like to touch upon and look at the way the food is processed, they collect the data about it, and also all the way to transportation, processing, all the way when it reaches to the kitchen. And the rest of the topics we have been intensely investigating, which includes the composition of the recipes that we consume on a day-to-day basis, which are cultural capsules and have been passed on to us over generations. And some of them have been passed on for centuries and some of them for longer than that. Then there is a taste correlate. One of the primary reasons why we tend to like food is by virtue of the taste and odor and the fragrance and the flavor that we experience when we consume something. And of course, a little longer term implication is in terms of nutrition, health implications, and finally, in terms of sustainable food systems that we can possibly have on the earth. So literally from farm to fork, every aspect of food, I believe, can be seen through the lens of data. Having said that, no area can be developed as a data science. Questions, algorithms from computer science can be implemented in the context of food unless there is quality curated data available. And that is one thing, having realized, I have been working and building on it. And for the last 8 years, systematically, step by step, we have built, may I call it, the first cut of the data repositories that are required for doing any intense computational gastronomy experiments. One of them is RecipeDB, which has more than 118,000 recipes from across the globe, including from 26 different world regions, geocultural regions, as well as 74 countries within that. And this obviously is not just another repository of recipes, online repository of recipes, but herein we have used natural language processing protocols such as named entity recognition to extract important culinary elements such as the name of the ingredient, the quantity, the processing, utensils, etc., which is all critical towards making a recipe what it is, meaningful dish. And then we have FlavorDB, which looks at the taste and the flavor correlates of the ingredients, which have been compiled via GCMS experiments, the flavor molecules in different ingredients. And we have also mined PubMed and Medline to look at close to a century's data of scientific article published about the efficacy or the positive negative associations of ingredients, and have compiled it in a single place, integrating it along with the molecules which are found in these ingredients, as well as associations with diseases, for example. And in a similar manner, there are other repositories that we have built, which I won't go into the details of each one of them for paucity of time, but I will take them up if there is a question towards the end of it. Having developed these data repositories, and we are now padding it up with carbon footprint data of recipes. While ingredients carbon footprint data has been made available, we have integrated it with the recipes data and are trying to find ways by which we can estimate the nutritional value profile of the recipes and try to compare recipes in a manner that we can possibly look at, try to find recipes which are having lower ecological footprint. One of the angles that we initially started off with was that of food pairing. In fact, my studies started by asking question about recipes, Indian recipes, and ingredient combinations in them. Are there patterns of ingredient combinations that are different from the world cuisine, or are they similar in terms of how they are combined, composed while creating a dish, making a recipe out of it? Well, when we asked this question, turned out that we figured out initially that compared to so-called Western recipes coming from North America, Latin America, as well as European countries, Indian recipes tend to have a different combination of ingredients, some kind of a contrasting food pairing. And importantly, spices have a key role to play in it, not in terms of their quantity, but in terms of how taking spice ingredients out of the recipes makes a huge impact on the food pairing, measurable food pairing index, vis-a-vis if you were to take out some other ingredient from other category. That's what we ended up showing way back in 2015, which got a lot of traction, starting from MIT Tech Review highlighting it as an emerging technology. More importantly, we did not stick to only the Indian cuisine and its nuances while we were investigating it from a data-driven perspective. We went ahead and looked at all of these world regional cuisines and investigated food pairing and food pairing patterns in them, which we were happy to present it in a computer science conference and got the best paper award in no other place than Paris, which is touted to be the mecca of culinary or gastronomy across the globe. One of the interesting questions that we definitely wanted to ask was that of how are cuisines related to each other. And for that, we used a process which is pretty much inspired from how researchers have investigated how languages are related to each other. And having quantified ingredient combinations, to that extent, even the contribution of each ingredient category towards the food pairing index of a cuisine, we could literally construct an array which represents the uniqueness of that particular cuisine in the way certain combination of ingredients, for example, are prominently used in that cuisine and certain combinations are avoided, for example. And having created this so-called culinary fingerprint, we can uniquely characterize a cuisine in a data-driven fashion. However, there are certain limitations to this approach, but still we went ahead and having got this fingerprint for each cuisine, we compared them in a multidimensional space to find out how close or how far they are from each other, and came up with this preliminary understanding of how cuisines may be related. And as you can see that by the short acronyms that I have presented for each cuisine, some of these are geographically close by cuisines, but some are not, and indicating that probably over time, let's say through colonization, some of these cuisines have had exchanges between them, and that imprint can be seen at the level of cuisine, showing us the picture of how a world cuisine tree can be visualized. Although this is a preliminary work and we are building on it further to include far deeper nuances going beyond only the ingredient combinations, accommodating other subtle facts such as the temporal order of cooking, the kind of processes that are used prominently in a cuisine vis-a-vis other, etc. I would like to, in this asset talk, I would like to discuss one interesting topic which is pretty much hot and discussed these days, which is that of artificial intelligence and how does it relate to culinary sciences. Well, going beyond Alan Turing's question of can a computer think, that was asked in the 1950s, we went ahead and asked this question about can a computer think like a chef? And when I say chef here, I mean anyone who knows cooking well. It could be anyone. And in that context, we wanted to investigate this question, having got the data with us. And this is an audacious question because capturing intelligence, expertise, and intuition of a chef, which is coming from experience, a lot of time spent, as well as sensory inputs that humans have, which a machine can't easily have it, not to despite all the sensory apparatus, sensors that we have built over a period of time. This is an audacious question. And obviously, the intention was not to say that can we replace a chef, but to say that aspects of cooking that a human, an expert chef or expert cook can capture, can at least a part of it can be captured by an algorithm. And further, places where human cognition has limitations in terms of, let's say, storing a large number of recipes, probably computers can do a better job at that and outcompete human in certain aspect of cooking, not to say that we are replacing a human angle here, human contribution here. And in that, with that thought, we went ahead and used these data that we have compiled over a time of recipes, ingredients, and cooking processes, etc., to create this tool called Ratatouille. And I know some of you already behind the screen are, smiling, having seen this familiar character from the movie Ratatouille, and the algorithm itself has been named after the movie. And inspiration comes from Chef Gustav, who keeps on saying in this movie, anyone can cook. And having said that, we have obviously taken this this remark of Chef Gustav to an extreme to say that can a computer, can an algorithm, can a program capture the essence of cooking and thereby create a new recipe. And this is a published paper again in ICD workshops, wherein we have put together large language model and of course have compared with other natural language processing approaches to capture the essence of the written text, which is what recipes are. and thereby going ahead and generating recipes having prompted with a few ingredients. So if I say that I have today in my refrigerator, potato, tomato, chili, and onion, and some such ingredients, a few of them, and ask Ratatouille to generate a recipe, this prototype that we have created actually goes ahead and starts popping out recipes starting with title, ingredients, and the rest of the details. We are obviously improving it further and trying to take it to a level where it can generate nuanced recipes and come up with something which is really tastable in a kitchen, pun intended. Going beyond, obviously, the question would be that, well, all this recipe generation using large language models is one part of it, but then how about actually cooking these recipes in a kitchen and tasting them out? Well, before we do that, we have put together this copyrighted framework called the Turing test for chef, which is available only on invitation for experts who know enough cooking. And we would like to have their inputs, wherein we have a stack of real recipes. Those are culturally available recipes with us across the globe, and those recipes which are generated by our own algorithm. Well, we do this blind test wherein one of the recipes will be randomly put in front of the taster, the chef or an expert, and we will be asking them to read the recipe and give their impression about, is this recipe real or fake on a scale of 0 to 5. And we are still in the middle of collecting this data, and of course weeding out users based on the data that we are collecting, so as to identify those who are genuine users, and going beyond that, checking out the veracity of our algorithm. And the idea is also to take the feedback from the expert users and improve the strategies that are going into our model. Well, importantly, in the last year, I thought of this analogy between language and cooking. And that is where I could connect with Noam Chomsky's generative grammar for natural languages and ask this question: does cooking have an underlying structure, an underlying grammar behind it? And I have come up with this proposal, which we are again formalizing it and also will be implementing it through computational approaches, wherein I have come up with this culinary elements, the so-called qubits, not the quantum bits, but the culinary bits, and how they can be put together using the 3 rules of cooking. And you can come up with ingredient phrases and sentences. And after we do that, we will be beyond syntax, we'll be trying to put together and see a semantics out of it, a meaningful, contextual, temporal order of cooking sentences, which are as good as that of a real recipe. It's a long journey, but going beyond the data-driven approaches, I have come up with this approach as well, wherein we can possibly look at the fundamental structure behind the act of cooking itself. That's what we're trying to do. Well, to summarize this particular endeavor of trying to capture the intuition of a chef into a program, we have started with scattered data out there, both online primarily and a bit of offline data that is through PDF and books, and structured them using NER, named entity recognition algorithms, and created a model on the basis of large language models available, and some which we are in the process of creating ourselves in the lab, and created new recipes, which of course need to be tasted out. And we are collaborating with the IHMs and similar cooking colleges, where the students of these colleges would actually try these recipes out, do the sensory experiments, and will give us a feedback about how well our algorithms are churning out recipes which are real-like. Well, there are plenty of applications of such recipe generation algorithms, which hospitality and restaurant and in general culinary industry acknowledges pretty much, wherein creating a new recipe can be of value in terms of pleasure that it gives to us. But at the same time, other aspects of it, such as health, cost, and sustainability in terms of carbon footprint, are also of value. So this is being churned out as a startup now, wherein we are intending to create this algorithm, refine it, and with multiple constraints. One of them is cuisine-specific constraint, wanting the recipe following a style of a given cuisine. or as I said, in terms of cost, optimizing in terms of cost, the carbon footprint, and health implications. Having said that, many of us are aware about how contradictory evidences about positive and negative effects of ingredients are, the literature is replete with that. So we wanted to collect this data in a single place to see if there is any meaning coming out of it, statistically speaking. And short of having a mathematical equation giving us how food reacts with body to give rise to health consequences, we collected this data called in this database called DietRx, where our contribution is in terms of food disease associations, which are mined from close to 36,000 articles from PubMed and Medline, wherein there is at least one sentence wherein there is a mention of food ingredient and a disease association with that. And we have integrated with external databases available about what kind of chemical composition the ingredient has, as well as association with the diseases and chemicals. The only one major association which we have not compiled and is not easily available is that of direct association between food and gene. But the rest of them, as they were available from literature, we have compiled it in a single place to mine it further, to find out associations that can be robust and tell us that there is a connection between food and disease, and chemical and a food, and chemical and a disease, so that interesting applications can be derived out of such knowledge by weeding out noise, which we are all aware of. And one of that direction, actually, in that we initially started with only herbs and spices and their disease associations. And our initial analysis told us that based on the literature, we can conclude that there is a fairly robust signature suggesting positive association, general positive association between culinary herbs and spices, close to 150 of them, and the mesh subject headings, diseases which are put under the mesh subject headings. Well, that's what we concluded. And in another direction, of course, we are trying to use other computational approaches such as machine learning and deep learning for various applications. This is one of them, wherein where we have looked at, can we, by looking at the structure of a compound, can we predict its taste, and can you predict its extent of the taste, the gradient of the taste? So a couple of articles which we have done on this topic. One of them is to compile the data of the taste, bitter, sweet, and tasteless molecules. And by using standard chemoinformatics kind of strategies, where we look at the chemical fingerprint and come up with machine learning algorithms, fine tune them, and find the best ways of getting the state-of-the-art model for predicting the taste. So there are a couple of models that have come out of our lab. One of them is bittersweet, and the other one is sweet bread. First one looks at classification of a molecule in bitter, sweet, and tasteless classes. And the second one can predict how sweet on a scale, on a logarithmic scale, the sweetness of a molecule would be, which has got its own applications for food and beverages industry, not to mention the industries which are coming up with artificial sweeteners, which are nature-like, for example. And a couple of other examples that I would provide, and I would rather conclude giving my concluding remarks and take questions after that. One of the applications that we thought of to make life easy for logging the food, which seems to be a critical element for anybody who's trying to manage their diet in the presence of lifestyle disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disorders. The existing companies, organizations, or industry basically takes data from you of your meal, and offline they would give recommendations with the help of expert nutritionists about the calories consumed and how you may tweak your diet in the rest of the day to stick to your daily recommended allowance and not exceed, which is most of the times the problem. Well, here is an app that we have created based on computer vision and object detection algorithms, wherein first, of course, we have built, and there are published papers on this again, Best Paper Award, one for only 10 most popular Indian dishes, a model that was built on top of it, by comparing with a range of machine learning and deep learning models. And we have now extended it to 61 dishes, most popular Indian dishes to begin with, and put together a framework which is available on archive. Idea is to implement this framework with a bit of resources involved in annotations and model building, computing resources, and extend this to any number of dishes from any cuisine. Idea is to take it to global level. And such an app, which is used for food logging and real-time dish detection, plugged with the nutritional data that we have, nutritional profile data that we have collected for the global recipes, can be a very, very good tool as a diet management application, which is what we have demonstrated through this proof of concept called What Dish. Well, beyond such experiments, we do also a lot of fun experiments. At any given point of time, there are to the tune of 70 to 100 undergraduate students, typically, other than MTech students working with me, developing various interesting applications and both foundational as well as applied directions. One of them is actually fun and tries to ask this question: can we gamify the food domain? And this is where we have taken a twist on a Wordle and have created a Foodle, which the idea is first to engage people in playing this game on a day-to-day basis. And going beyond, can we nudge people into eating more healthy and nutritious food, and obviously to an extent of making it personalized? That's the direction we are trying to take this game into. Having said this, the domain of computational gastronomy, I strongly believe, helps us making food computable, seeing the food and different dimensions of food through the lens of data, computation. And today, we can't ignore the fact that using computational approaches, data-driven approaches, can help change any domain in a dramatic fashion. The idea is obviously to achieve goals which are of societal value other than the personal satisfaction that we can think of. And these are various dimensions that have portrayed in front of you, in which some of them I have already elaborated on, telling us about what are the possible directions that this research can go into, although this is not all of it. Well, other than teaching, I of course love teaching. This is why I ended up moving from CSR system to the IIT system to begin with. And I have, other than teaching the other courses which I have been teaching over time, I have started this computational gastronomy course. And this is one batch from the last year, a large chunk of computer science audience taking this course, other than the EC audience, wherein they learned about food, nutrition, health, data aspects of it, use the APIs, in-house APIs for building applications, asking interesting questions about why do we eat spices, for example, and many others. And well, this is, I love this whole experiment about how I am helping discuss these ideas that have been developing over a period of time with these students, get feedback from them, learn something new from them, and experiment with some new interesting ideas while working on mini projects with them. Also, touching upon aspects which I never thought of when I started off, which are going beyond the food, flavor, and nutrition aspect of it, touches upon the socially important aspects, right from gender roles to discrimination, food-based discrimination. Well, in a similar vein, I have put together Kaggle challenges. Those who would like to deal with some data science challenges for classification as well as regression can use these challenges from Kaggle and use our data, which has been partially masked, to try your abilities to in designing good models and probably beat our state of the art that we are having. And of course, the commercial endeavors, which are pretty relevant. Other than making all of these repositories after publishing for non-commercial purposes, they're all available from my lab website. We are also developing the APIs, the application programming interfaces, which is what the industry has been heavily seeking for right from the day we started doing our first work, but pretty much in the last 3-4 years, there has been a demand. So we are not shying away from commercial applications and moving in that direction as well. And well, finally, the endeavor, all the adventures that I've been through in the last so many years, been trying to put it together as a popular science book, through a pun, it is called as a bite, both a computer science bite as well as a food bite. And with that, I would like to conclude and to put this quote from Birla Savarine, which comes from the book Physiology of Taste, which incidentally I had read for the first time in the canteen of IUCA, which was very humbly hung there, that the discovery of a new dish confers more happiness on humanity than the discovery of a new star. So serendipitously, while I wanted to discover new stars, or rather study cosmic phenomena, I couldn't do that. But I believe with the endeavors that I am engaging in the last 8 years, we should be able to discover new dishes to make humanity happier and hopefully healthier. So with that, I would like to take the questions that you may have. Thank you.
Amazing. It's really, really wonderful talk, very crispy and crispy, I should say, probably not crisp, and very spicy. And a lot of technology got in. I mean, looks like as serious business as astronomy or any other topic, but very, very beautifully presented, Ganesh. So, okay, so now over to the yes, there are already some questions. So let us go to Professor Vivek Datar. He has a question.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay. No, so my question is, you have stated that, you haven't found really a new dish yet, but you hope to in the near future. But is it, have you at least managed to improve on some, dish significantly? Has that at least happened?
Okay. So I didn't say that we didn't find dish. We have found dishes, and some of them when we tried it in my, of course, I don't have a lab, wet lab. I don't have a wet lab. It's a dry lab. But in my kitchen, I have tried experimenting with, and some of my chef friends have done that. In fact, I didn't put those articles up, but some of the newspaper articles have highlighted this point about how chefs have tried some of these recipes churned out by Ratatouille. To put it bluntly, some of these recipes indeed come out to be novel and when cooked tasty, but not all of them. So there are false positives. So the idea is to reduce these false positives is what we're trying to do. And to answer your second question, have we improved the existing dishes? The final, whether we have improved it or not has to be sensorially tested. And that is something which I'm struggling with in terms of collaborating with IHMs and actually having evidence for quote unquote created improved dish. We are doing that, in the process of doing that.
No, especially what I find interesting is that with this, you may be able to get a dish which is not only delicious, but also very nutritive and catering to people who have different requirements and so on.
Absolutely.
That is the possibility in this approach.
Yes. So when I said constraint, one was cuisine, second was nutrition, third was health, fourth was cost, and fifth was sustainability, carbon footprint. All of these constraints, literally speaking, the recipes can be optimized for that. However, you need data. For example, cost. I need literally market data on a daily basis. So yeah, it's a lot of challenge, I would say. And I need help from governments and regulatory authorities and ministries. So it's a big game, I would say. Yeah. And I'm happy to have developed it sitting right here in India. I'm so glad to, and many people do mention that. So super glad to have done that.
Thank you. And yeah, it was a very interesting,
Thank you.
Yeah, more questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, can I go?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, Ganesh. Actually, a few questions maybe, but I must say, intriguing, very, very intriguing. Okay, more than what I thought from the abstract. I have a question firstly about the tree that you showed. Okay, and you have also classified the geographical proximity, which also leads to probably culinary proximity in that space. So my question was: is there, apart from this work, before this work, is there like a technical, because that seems like a very important in food science, a very important factor in food science. Is there technical research and literature on that part?
So not on tree of cuisines. Languages, plenty of work has happened. In fact, I got inspired from languages actually. Okay, there has been some work published in, for example, NEJP, the physics journal, about evolution of cuisines, like simple models, copy mutate model, as the name says, of cuisine evolution, about how recipes might have been less in number and far more simple, and how over a period of time more and more ingredients might have been incorporated through the literally biological, quasi-biological processes like copy and mutate. Recipes copied and ingredients mutated. But evolution, yes, but looking at large data and trying to understand how the cuisines may be related to each other, incidentally, there is nothing, barring for our work, which is already cited here at the bottom of the slide. Yeah.
Right, I saw that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I see. I thought, the topic does appear to be very impactful, right? It's bang in the center of our lives. So I thought there must have been some work, but nice. I'll come back later.
I think the problem was that nobody had good enough data to dig into. That was the problem. You see that, like having structured data, for example, with which you can mine and try correlating, etc. I mean, what we have done is not very great in terms of similarities, different type of cosine similarity, etc. After putting into n-dimensional space. But where is the data? Where is the quality curated data? That was missing. And that is the challenge I took. And it was an academic risk, given the fact that all of my physicists and biologist friends were criticizing me about what nonsense are you up to. So I realized that, okay, there is something very interesting stuff it is happening here, wanted to do that. But yes, I'm lucky. I mean, I'm glad that we are among the first people who have done this work, if not the first.
Okay. Satya, I'll come back again later.
Yeah,
Sure.
great. Are there more questions? Okay. By the time others decide, I want to ask Ganesh. So, incidentally, the one of the slide, of course, shows that where you it's like a gastronomy 101, and you did mention briefly. So, how much this is going into, kind of a curriculum of various universities, or this is the one.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. So when I started this, I'm really glad that places like IITs and IIIT-Delhi definitely are encouraging of such pedagogical experiments where we are trying to deal with topics which are so esoteric, but definitely at the heart of IIIT in terms of application of computing and information technology, I would say. Yes, I started this, have rolled it for 4 years. There has been a request from, for example, certain culinary colleges, A, B, some mathematics programs in Kerala, and the other one was Culinary College was from Pune, where they are wanting to incorporate this into their curriculum. Challenge being, where are the people who know enough of the fundamentals who can actually teach it? So I'm trying to make them like MOOCs. Some of them are already made available on YouTube, and also smaller modules, like say one credit module or so, which can be done on a shorter duration. And hopefully, as it is already happening, many people will end up catching up onto this area, and more and more curriculums will start incorporating this wherever it is found to be relevant.
Yes, that's right. So, point in asking, of course, besides the top tech colleges, there are also a large number of other engineering colleges, even who are especially autonomous. So they have a lot of freedom now to kind of bringing in such courses for credits. So they in fact go all the way up to teaching yoga and many other parts. But this is something with an aspect of even computation and so on connected to, as Sushil rightly mentioned, which is at center of all our lives, and maybe it will attract better attention from the, let us say, the academic councils of these colleges which set up syllabi and so on. So, and with NEP around, of course, there's lots of so-called research component getting into standard syllabi. And so I think this is a nice, I would say, candidate to get into those syllabi of engineering. I mean, of course, science and so on, and particularly colleges like catering, specific colleges, that is, I think it's a more straightforward thing, but even other colleges. Yeah.
Absolutely get your point. And I'm hoping that more and more people will take it. And as I said, I'm trying to solve that underlying problem, wherein do we have enough people who understand the premise and the underlying computer scientists, there are plenty, data scientists, there are plenty, but they can also get understanding of the culinary aspect of it, the gastronomy aspect of it. And the second problem that I need to solve is that of where is the data, so that APIs, while we are trying to commercialize it, but at the same time can for such purposes, we are making it available on trial basis. Okay, you want to try it out, go and use it for a 1 month course curriculum kind of thing. So yes, that the data points also are being made available, and I'll be happy in case you suggest or anyone else suggests. I would like to happy to take it. I'll be happy to take it forward with any of these agencies or colleges.
Actually, I have some in mind. So maybe I can offline send out. I'm also there on some of these committees as well. So anyway, that apart, maybe that is at least nothing wrong in tapping such a possibility.
And I see a lot of, it's very something interesting. Sushil and all of us might connect with that. Somehow I found that the recent newer generations are somehow more conscious about what they eat. A, B, they also learn to cook, which somehow, because of the kind of rigid gender roles I believe not all of us were taught as well, or we were not conscious about it. So there are more takers I see in younger generations, as far as I could see. Yeah. And incidentally, I have a huge team of interns which come from different parts of India, including from IISc and IIT Madras and all, who engage in these projects out of their interest.
Yeah, you did mention, I mean, to a level of 80 to 100 students, it's a big number, right? So, yeah, it looks like Sushil has one more.
This class itself was 139 students.
Very interesting. Sushil, are you going to ask one more? No.
I probably zoned out for a couple of minutes. Is the question on the chat being discussed?
I'm sorry. Then I missed something.
Yep. Can you take that?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed that. Can you please ask this question? If you can unmute and ask, that will be nice. I'm sorry, I missed it somehow. Thanks.
Right.
For
so hello, actually I'm a student from KG Samya College of Engineering. I'm an undergraduate doing computer science engineering. So as you mentioned, you have used models, and I had a question like, have you considered how different food ingredients they react with one another? Like if you consider a data as like, say suppose like your ingredients, suppose like say potatoes or anything, and but have you considered like whether potatoes is suitable to be mixed in with onions or something else, like the chemical nature of the food? So have you...
I get your point.
Yeah.
Sorry, please go ahead. Complete your question.
Yeah, that's it. So have you found a way to include the chemical nature of the food inside your model before coming up with a prediction or before coming up with a recipe?
Right. I get your point. I hope you can hear me. There was a bit of disruption, but I hope it is clear. Right.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Good. So incidentally, there have been heuristics available under the name of Viruddhahara and such, which you might have heard about. However, we have not been able to investigate it at a deeper level to know what kind of ingredient combinations are quote unquote good and what are not good. My understanding is this, that recipes which have been consumed over a period of time and across the cultures are safe in short run, in obviously in decent whatever quantities they are meant to be eaten in a single portion. They are safe, right? Therefore, we do have already data of what kind of ingredient combinations are acceptable even from the perspective of health. However, do we have enough understanding at the molecular level of given certain ingredient and their molecular composition when cooked together, let's say using boiling and roasting, how safe it is? I don't think we have enough data of that available in public domain. Maybe certain industry has it, but we don't have it in public domain as yet. So we do not have any premise on which we can build new recipes with this understanding.
All right. So yeah, I thought that would be a challenge because like having a data of that is also, it would be a very big challenge. So I think the solution would be like to just generate a lot of recipes and try it out and see whether it's working or not.
Man, that's a huge challenge if one were to do it. Trust me, because even collecting data of, for example, flavor molecules requires huge experiments in terms of gas chromatography and mass spectroscopy. Similarly, finding nutritional value has similar kind of challenges, etc. So I agree that in principle, what you're proposing should be taken up by either a government body or industry which has got deep pockets. But yes, eminently needed to be done, given the fact that food is so important, as Sushil said. Yes, I think we have a question from Acharya.
Yeah. So I think I liked Jensen's question. So he really brought out an important aspect of what is the future direction of your field. So with that, let us go to Acharya.
Yeah, I have a question. Ganesh, it was a very nice talk. The question I have is, apart from the ingredients and the recipe, the process of making the food is different. Okay, like the taste turns out. How are you going to codify it or putting your data how are you going to do it? Like, for example, what I mean is, like idli or dosa or something, the same process people may use it, or same ingredient. But then how you make it, taste turns out to be different. It's actually not only taste, the look and other things will be different. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get your point. I get your point. I know it's a very, very complex topic. Therefore, saying that I understand how is a idli made or how is a dosa made or a sambar made is not end of the day, because there are so many variations of the same. And sometimes there are variations at the level of cuisines, sometimes they are at the level of communities. And to some extent, somebody might take a pride in their own family recipe that they may have. I completely understand that. So yes, right now, it is a coarse-grained representation of the recipes available in the traditional practices. It's a confession. Having said that, do we want to collect this data? Yes, we do want to. So whatever data, whatever is variations are already available. For example, we have partially captured it. For example, let's say for biryanis of various types, we have hundreds of them. Dosa itself, we have up to few tens of recipes, etc. But that doesn't match up with the actual variations available at the ground level. So we have come up with crowdsourcing applications, tools, which we have created, A/B, to capture anything that is relevant in the context of offering taste, nutritional value of a recipe. Now, if I can capture in my language of that Chomskyan framework of culinary grammar, I can capture the ingredient name, quantity, unit, pre-processing that is done on that. We call them as forms, and utensils, processing, time, how much time it is taking, what is the heat, etc. All of this we have put it together in a manner that we can capture all of these information, by the way. Okay, that's what we are trying to do right now. And as long as these information can be encoded and can be written down and can be captured, I believe it can be done. Of course, there is a lot of effort that is required. But there are some people who go to the extent of saying that, look, my mother's recipe, I don't think I can capture anything which is intangible. So barring for that, I believe everything can be captured. We have not done it yet, but we are putting together a framework for doing so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So any other questions to Ganesh?
Satya, I did have a question early on, but probably I would only be adding to the plethora of unknown variables in this problem. Because basically the fact of different populations have different likings of what is good, what is not good, probably coming from tradition. And I don't know if that has been quantified, can be quantified. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So if you look at recipes from a given region, let's talk about Northeast India versus, let's say, Maharashtra or Rajasthan, etc. You will find that there are certain ingredients which are more popularly used, certain ingredient combinations which are more used, processes prevalent, etc. Through that, one can capture these nuances. For example, certain fermented food, including that of fishes, being more prominent in certain part of Northeast and probably not liked so much in other part of the world. That is always there. To some extent, we can capture this as long as we can accept a general definition of which cuisine is kind of homogeneous and what level of coarse graining we can take it. But I think beyond that, it is very difficult to, because beyond cultural likings and dislikings, you might end up bringing personal likings and dislikings also, which makes it far more deeper. And we are obviously looking at that question also about what are the SNPs which should be looked at to be able to codify what kind of tastes are liked and disliked by an individual. And obviously, there are a lot of commercial endeavors, importance for doing such a thing. But these are all very, very subtle, interesting questions. And my plate is too full, metaphorically speaking. Yeah, but very interesting, Sushil, right? Valid questions.
Okay, wonderful. And I think also it is sort of time for Ganesh to move, because he has a real hard kind of stop at 5.
Yeah.
Let us give him a few minutes of breather. So not before really thanking him for such a wonderful talk, and it has been a very, very special, unique one, and very beautifully presented. And I think it has obviously attracted attention of everyone. And we look forward to kind of having you on the campus as soon as possible. Maybe we'll have a kind of a topic of a different nature soon. And with that, let us thank today's speaker on behalf of all of us. Great talk, Ganesh.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And all the best for this very nice work. All the best.
Thank you. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.